in the Times. The Prime Minister has shelved plans to overhaul the benefits system. Sir Keir Starmer has vetoed a plan for a new attempt to reform the structure of welfare in this country as Number 10 seeks to avoid another confrontation with Labour MPs. The Department for Work and Pensions has been told it will not be given time in Parliament to introduce any changes to the benefit system until next year at the earliest. The decision makes it far less likely that reforms to welfare will be implemented before the next general election due in 2029. So what that means in plain English is no reform of our welfare system and of the spiralling benefits budget. That's a problem for Alarm Clock Britain, because you get up in the morning, you work hard, you pay your taxes to bankroll those who are sat at home, mainlining Domino's Pizza, watching Sky TV and guzzling Iron Brew or what other potion they currently enjoy. Let's get reaction now from quite an icon of Conservative thought. He is an ex-Tory MP, Sir Michael Fabricant. Good morning, Sir Michael.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. And once again, Labour kick the issue of the spiralling welfare budget into the long grass.
Well, this is £100 billion or more that we're spending on welfare, which could be spent on education, on our ailing NHS, and so many other different things, including defence. Of course, we're never going to save all 100 billion, but it is spiralling. It began to spire, of course, during the COVID crisis, but that's what it did everywhere throughout the world. But it started to be being cut back again. And really, this is just a demonstration that Keir Starmer is running scared. He's running scared of his own backbenchers. It's remarkable, actually, that this is a government with a gigantic 140 majority, and yet he can't get legislation through. Why? Because he is running frit. He runs frit of Prime Minister's Question Time. He is running frit now of his backbenchers. And of course, as we know, he was running frit of Andy Burnham too.
Well, indeed, the problem you've got is that so many of his backbenchers are incredibly left-wing, Sir Michael.
That's right, and that's one of the problems poor old Wes Streeting is facing. He wants to reform the NHS and make it into a far more effective and efficient organisation, just like all those years ago, Alan Milburn, remember him?
Of course.
He was Secretary of State for Health. He had the backing of Tony Blair, but his backbenchers, including ministers as well, like Gordon Brown, wouldn't allow it. The trouble is, no matter how reforming a Prime Minister you may have in Labour, and I don't think, by the way, Keir Starmer is reforming at all. But no matter how reforming you get a Prime Minister in Labour, his backbenchers are always the old left-wing trade unionists. And, you know, they really just don't understand and don't want people who actually go out and work hard. Like you were saying, Mark, getting up early in the morning, getting out to do work. They don't actually support those people at all, probably because they never had to do it.
Well, this is it. You're an experienced parliamentarian, but you're also an entrepreneur as well, and you've built successful businesses prior to entering politics. So you know what a balance sheet looks like, and you know when there's more going out than is coming in. This country is heading down a very dangerous road, and it's a big problem for my viewers and listeners, but we're not financially viable, are we?
Not at the moment, we're not, and especially if we're not going to tackle certain things which are tough. And that means not only our burgeoning welfare bill, which is one of the highest now in Europe, but also the crossings, the illegal crossings of the English Channel, migration. Yeah. You know, the Conservatives came up with a half-decent plan, which was Rwanda. They didn't even have it in effect, but people started leaving England and moving, this is to say, illegal migrants left England to move across to Ireland. You'll remember there were major demonstrations in Dublin, Cork and other big cities in Ireland because of these people running scared from England, and it actually stopped, to a large extent, the boat crossings. But could he continue with it? No, probably because Starmer didn't want to do it anyway, and his backbenchers would never allow it.
Well, most definitely. I mean, the cost of accommodating illegal immigrants at the moment is somewhere between 10 and 15 billion pounds a year. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, given the fact that the majority of these people that have entered the country illegally, Sir Michael, will be given leave to remain.
That's right. We just don't have the numbers of people to actually process them. And again, if only we could save some money on the welfare bill, this is money that we could very well spend on these areas. Now, the problem is that Keir Starmer is running scared. He's running scared of his own backbenchers. He's running scared of the responsibility of being in government. And I think it's remarkable that with all the problems that exist at the moment, he's gone off to China instead of staying at home in the UK and addressing some of these problems and dealing with his backbenchers.
Well, he thinks he's going to get
Sunday of last week.
Go on.
Well, I was just going to say, Sunday of last week, he attended an NEC meeting, the National Executive Council of the Labour Party, a meeting which the Prime Minister doesn't normally attend, simply to lead the charge against Andy Burnham standing as the candidate in the by-election. A candidate who, by the way, is probably the only one who might have won for Labour.
You raise a very, very good point, and running scared appears to be a theme of his premiership. Do you have some sympathy, though, for him, given the fact that so many of those backbenchers, those left-wing extremists, are a legacy of the Corbyn years when he filled the parliamentary party with radical socialists?
Yeah, and of course, he's a legacy of the Corbyn years. It's so easy to forget that he was backing Jeremy Corbyn. He was one of the people, along with Shami Chakrabarti, infamously, who said there is no anti-Semitism in Corbyn's administration, his opposition party of Labour, when, of course, it's now been shown that there was huge anti-Semitism, and at least Starmer has now addressed it. But, you know, he's an incredible hypocrite. This guy is married to a lovely Jewish lady, and yet he couldn't bring himself to actually challenge Corbyn when he was part of that revolting team.
Well, indeed, most people voted with their conscience and left the shadow cabinet when they were concerned about the scale of anti-Semitism. Some Jewish members of parliament actually left the party, exited the House of Commons, including Luciana Berger, and yet Starmer stayed and was a cheerleader for the Corbyn regime. Corbyn, by the way, a man that would have destroyed the country economically, and said in an interview that he wouldn't necessarily press the nuclear button if we faced a foreign invasion. So be afraid, be very afraid. Can I ask you about Starmer's history as a human rights lawyer? We've been asking our viewers and listeners this morning, is he fit to lead the armed forces, given that he campaigned for the prosecution of veterans?
Well, the short answer is no, and I was really impressed with, I can't remember all their names, Yvonne and Dan from Staffordshire, where I am at the moment, by the way, I'm in Lichfield, and they were saying exactly what we all believe. No, he's not fit, as one of your callers, I think it was Carl, said, you know, he's not fit to tie my shoelaces, and he isn't. He was in cahoots with a lawyer called China, who has since been exposed as someone who... I won't go too far here, otherwise we'll all be done for defamation. I never like criticising lawyers because you never know what they're going to do. But nevertheless, it's been shown that China was not right, shall we say, in the way that he was hounding ex-servicemen who had a very, very tough job in Northern Ireland all those years ago. It's we don't show enough thanks and gratitude to those people who did a very difficult job. For a very short while, I was with the BBC in Northern Ireland, and it was a tough, tough time then, and that was just in the BBC. So imagine what it was like being a soldier or working undercover in those days. And I do remember when one soldier was, and was it two, I think, were captured by a mob and were murdered. You know, very disgraceful. There were very, very bad times.
Absolutely devastating. I mean, if you look at Starmer's actions as a human rights lawyer, and not just that, he can't even say, oh, that was in the old days and I was a lawyer then and now I'm Prime Minister, because as Prime Minister, he's changed the rules so that Northern Ireland veterans can be prosecuted, you know, whilst in office as PM. We've had the war on pensioners, we've had the war on farmers, the proposed axing of jury trials, the Chagos Islands giveaway. Is there a sort of anti-British flavour to this British Prime Minister? Is this a leader that detests his own country?
Well, I'm not going to go and speculate on that because you've got to ask him. But I bet you will be fripped by the way of being interviewed by you, Mark. But He certainly displays all those characteristics, doesn't he? He just doesn't seem to understand what being patriotic is all about. He doesn't seem to understand what is the glory of our nation. Instead, he's now kowtowing to the Chinese premier in Beijing. This is a man, you know, if you go into number 10 Downing Street, you go through that black door, the first thing you have to do is you have to take off your Apple Watch, if you have one. You have to take out your mobile phone. You have to put it into a little pigeonhole. They've got the whole little wooden arrangement for putting your phones in. And by the way, there's been a number of instances where someone has then left Downing Street and taken the wrong phone.
Oh, dear.
But all because of Chinese spying that is going on. China is a hostile nation to the United Kingdom. And of course, he's kowtowed again. He's frit again by giving permission for this incredible embassy in London. It'll be the biggest embassy of any country anywhere in Europe, bigger than the US embassy. And it's going to be right by the City of London and adjacent to all those fibre optic cables which carry important sensitive data which China would so much like to get its hands on. And this, you know, he has said this morning, Keir Starmer, oh, yes, of course, I raised the question of human rights. Yes, he will do it in a perfunctory way so he can tick a box. You can't have a discussion because China will say, look, you run your country, we'll run our country. No, it is a disgrace, and he's a disgrace.
Just very briefly, a couple of seconds, if you can, Sir Michael. Graham in Milton Keynes has messaged the show. He says, good morning, Mark. What's the betting that Sir Keir Starmer... what's the betting that the football Keir Starmer presented to President Xi was made in China? Highly unlikely it was made in the UK. And Richard in Crowborough, good morning, Mark. Our country is broke, and the first thing Starmer should have done when he landed in Beijing was slap an invoice for £500 billion on Xi Jinping's desk, our portion of what they owe for infecting an entire planet with COVID. But forgive and forget, COVID is the elephant in the room when it comes to Anglo-Chinese relations, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's almost certain now that it originated in China. Whether it was a deliberate release, I doubt, because actually many Chinese suffered, as we know. In fact, the original doctor who picked out the fact that it was a very dangerous disease, he then subsequently died of it. But yeah, they owe us a lot. We certainly don't owe them anything. And this is the wrong time for Starmer to be going and kowtowing in China.
Sir Michael, what a treat to have you on the show. Look forward to speaking to you soon. Former Conservative MP, broadcaster and political consultant.